My beloved child, today I do not begin by speaking of the things you have done wrong, but of the way you accuse yourself every time you remember. You believe you are being humble when you take all the blame upon yourself. Yet I see your shoulders bending under a backpack of stones no one ever asked you to carry. I see the stones you gather every, if only. Every I deserve it. Every whisper of it was all my fault. All stuffed into that invisible backpack and hung on your back from morning till night. You imagine that I am the one who placed that burden on your shoulders. But in truth, many times you are the one picking up each stone, wiping it clean, then holding it close as if this weight were a necessary part of life. You do not realize that sometimes sin has been forgiven. Wounds have begun to heal. Yet the habit of self-condemnation keeps adding more stones, leaving the body weary and the soul exhausted. I watch you walk through your days like one climbing a hill, breathless, not because the path is steep, but because the backpack is too full. My child, today I want to draw you close, lay my hand upon your shoulder, and speak a sentence you may have never dared to consider many times. It is not true guilt that weighs you down, but the verdict you sign against yourself. I want you to be startled, to open your eyes to see this, for otherwise you may stand forever outside the threshold I am opening, simply because you believe you are unworthy to step inside. You think I look at you with eyes that only record and count mistakes, but you do not know that I look deeper than what you do. I look into the words you speak to yourself afterward. I hear every sigh you do not dare to voice. The whispers in the night, it was all my fault. If I were different, none of this would have happened. I ruin everything. These words may seem harmless to you, mere complaints. But to the soul, they are like ropes that bind the hands. Like a sentence repeated until you begin to believe you deserve punishment rather than grace. You think you are being responsible, when in fact you have taken my seat on the judge's bench, pronouncing verdicts I have never signed. I am the God of justice, but I am also the God of mercy, and you, in your weariness, have become the accused, the judge, and the one holding the whip. My child, it is not my will that you live inside a courtroom built within your own heart, where every memory becomes evidence, every failure becomes a file, every word spoken by others becomes a new red seal stamped upon your forehead. I did not create you to live beneath that vaulted ceiling of accusation. I created you to walk in the light of this knowledge. I see everything. Yet I do not push you against the wall. I see everything. And still I call you my beloved. You have grown so accustomed to the backpack of stones that it feels like a part of your body, to the point that if I were to ask you to take it off, you would hesitate, unsure of who you are without the burden. You call it responsibility. Call it paying the price. Call it making up for what you did wrong. But many of these things, my child, are not repentance that leads to life, but self-punishment that leads to exhaustion. There are tears you have shed for your sin. I have received them, wiped them away, and used them to cleanse your eyes. Yet after that, you continue to cry other tears, no longer because of sin, but because you believed you deserved contempt, abandonment, and exclusion. I do not place those tears into my bottle, for they do not come from the holy conviction of the Spirit, but from the distorted voice of shame and self-rejection. I want you to distinguish this clearly when I touch what is wrong in you. I do so to free you, to remove chains, to open doors. But when you condemn yourself, you only build more walls, add more locks, Pushing the threshold, I opened farther away. Today, I name what you have long been afraid to name, the habit of striking your own heart whenever you remember the past. The habit of speaking harshly to yourself in words you would never use on anyone else. Do you see that you have let others go, forgiven those who hurt you, yet find it very difficult to forgive yourself? You are willing to say, "It's all right" to others, but for yourself, you keep every tiny mistake as evidence, so that whenever you raise your head, you remind yourself, "Don't forget. You are the one who ruined everything." I see you trying to live well, trying to serve, trying to love. Yet inside you still view yourself as someone standing at the edge, unworthy to sit at the table, only allowed to watch from afar. You receive grace like a trembling hand, always afraid that someday I will take everything back once I remember what you have done. But my child, I do not forget. I knew from the beginning. I saw it long before. I never suddenly remember something and then change my mind about you. I saw you when your backpack was empty, and when you filled it stone by stone, and I loved you through the whole journey. If I, who know everything, have not turned my back on you, why do you turn your back on yourself? If I have not thrown a single stone at you, why do you pick them up and throw them at your own heart? Today, I want you to be astonished by this truth. The greatest burden on your shoulders is not what you have done, but what you refuse to release about yourself. The threshold I have opened before you is not locked by confessed sin, but by the accusations you repeat against yourself every day. You stand before that door, seeing the light, hearing the promise, smelling the fragrance of a new life. Yet every time you prepare to step through, a familiar voice rises within. You are not worthy. Remember what you did. Someone like you cannot be that joyful. And instead of answering that voice with the truth I have spoken, you lower your head, turn away, step back, and call it humility. My child, humility is not dragging yourself into the mud. Humility is agreeing with what I say about you, even when it is so beautiful you find it hard to believe. Humility is daring to remove the backpack, even when you have carried it so long that the weight feels familiar. Humility is not arguing with grace. When you stay outside the threshold because you believe you are unworthy, you not only hurt yourself but also doubt my heart, as though I invited the wrong person, as though I did not know who you are. Today, I call you to the doorway again, not to stand trembling outside, but to hear me say clearly, you are not allowed to bind your own feet with verdicts I never issued. You believe chains must rattle for others to hear them, must be iron around the ankles, must be a stone dungeon. But I see in your life chains that make no sound at all, invisible to the eye. Without any clear form, they hide in every sentence you whisper to yourself. You call them thoughts, awareness, reminders, but I know they are barbed wires wrapped around the heart, pulled tight so that even a slight movement cuts the skin and makes you sting. Many times you cannot understand why you step close to the light yet pull back, why a good opportunity fills you with suspicion, why an invitation to cross the threshold makes your knees weaken. You assume the obstacle comes from the outside, from someone being uncooperative, from circumstances not working smoothly. But the root lies in a more hidden place, in the sentences you whisper to yourself every single day. I hear those whispers very clearly, because they rise in the soul long before they reach your lips. You do not realize that every sentence you speak to yourself takes shape like an arrow, like a blade, like barbed wire, wrapping around your will and clouding your sight. You do not hear the sound of them, but I see those words tighten around your heart, stinging every time you try to step toward the goodness I have prepared for you. You tell yourself, "This is as far as I'm allowed to be. Don't hope too much." You are convinced that, if I step forward, I will surely fail. You tell yourself, "I must endure this, because I did wrong." You are certain that someone better deserves that place. I am not worthy. These sentences do not explode like storms, but drip steadily, like sour rain eating away at stone. No one else hears them, but I see each drop softening the foundation, weakening your stance, so that when you try to step across the threshold, the ground beneath you gives way at your ankles. You have believed these sentences for so long that they have become your personal truth, a fence that keeps you small. You think it is humility, knowing your place. But in truth, it is a lie dressed in virtue. I have never said, "You belong on the margins." I have never spoken, "Live in guilt and chain yourself to punishment for life." I have never called you someone who must shrink in order not to bother anyone. Yet you use sentences like these to direct your steps, to keep yourself outside the blessings I am opening. Many times, a single sentence spoken in a tired moment has slowed your progress for an entire month. You do not know that words are not only sound, words create pathways. Words do not merely describe feelings, words build walls and barbed wire. I see you standing before a wide open door, yet you bow your head because of a small voice inside, and that voice is not mine. I have seen the moments when you were close to blessing, but instead of entering, you stopped, placed your hand over your chest, and whispered, "Don't dream too much. I don't belong there." I have heard the times when you were invited to the table, yet you chose to stand in the back and told yourself, "It's safer here. I don't want to disappoint anyone." I have watched the moments when you were offered opportunity, but you refused, because you believed that if you accepted it, you would surely ruin it. You do not see that these self-spoken sentences are what hold you back. Not me. You think blessing has not opened its door, but I see the door has been open for a long time. It is only that your feet are bound by invisible wires of your own braiding. I have touched them, wanting to undo them, yet every time I reach, you recoil, believing you deserve to be tied. You have lived with that dull pain for so long that you call it normal. But I tell you, living with barbed wire around your heart is not what normal is. The voice inside you carries more power than anything outside, because it speaks with a familiar tone sounding like truth, like reason, like humility. Yet it is self-condemnation. Often, you would rather believe that voice than believe me, because it comes from habit. Whereas I come from freedom, you fear freedom, because you do not know what to do when the chains are gone. But I call you into freedom not so you may indulge, but so you may stand upright. I want you to know that I did not form you to live in barbed wire made of self-spoken sentences. I formed you to live under the wide sky of grace, where you can lift your face without fear of cuts. My child, the chains that keep you from blessing were not placed by me, but I am the only one who can remove them without tearing your flesh. Today I want you to understand this. The blessing is not far away. It is the words you speak to yourself that stop you at the threshold. You have grown accustomed to hearing the calls of memory, of failures, of moments you did wrong, and you believe those calls were your real identity. You hear people call you by what happened, this failure, that mistake, missed opportunities, poorly timed words, overreactions. You hear the echo of your own voice repeating the old judgments. I am the troublemaker. I ruin everything. I am a burden. I am a walking mistake. But I have never called you by those names. When I look at you, I do not see a performance chart, a record of violations, a list of missteps. I see a true name, a name I gave before your life began, a name that memory cannot erase, emotions cannot blur, people cannot change, and you yourself cannot drag lower. You know this from Scripture. I called your name before you were born. Yet you have read it as a beautiful poem rather than lived it as a declaration of identity. I did not wait for you to succeed before naming you. I called your name before you achieved anything, before you understood anything, before you loved me or walked away from me. Your name does not come from your performance, but from my intention. Often you define yourself by what has passed, as though the past determines your whole life. You think because that happened, this is who I am. You shine the light of today through the shadows of yesterday, not realizing that I stood in both. You have not yet learned to distinguish my voice from the voice of shame. Shame calls you by your failure. I call you by your true name. Shame whispers, you are a failure. I say, you are the one I love. Shame says, you did that, so you belong to the shadows. I answer, I have written your name on the palm of my hand, and I do not do that for a shadow. You cannot hear the difference, because shame speaks in a tone that sounds like reason, like humility, like awakening. Yet it is a chain that holds you. I do not speak to you in that tone. When I call your name, there is no whip, no threat, no reminder of wrongs. The name I speak carries light, breath, and life. You do not need to bow your head when you hear it. You lift your face. You once thought I would call you only after you were fixed, when you were worthy. Yet, when I called Jeremiah, I spoke before he said a single word. When I called Gideon, I said, mighty warrior, before he did anything that looked brave. When I called Samuel, I said, Samuel, Samuel, even though the boy did not yet know my voice. I call first, then I teach. I name first, then I lead. I give identity first, then I give responsibility. You learned it backward. You demand to accomplish something first, then you dare to believe you are loved. But the true order is this: I love first, then you have the strength to act. I speak your name first, then you know where to go. I confirm identity first, then you have the foundation to choose well. My child, I do not wait for you to become perfect before I call, because if I did, no one would ever be called. Grace arrives first. Transformation follows. I have engraved your name on the palm of my hand. You think it is a beautiful image, but I tell you today it is a spiritual reality. When you feel forgotten, I do not need to search for you in the crowd. I only need to look at my hand. There is no day when I do not look at my hand. There is no hour when I forget you. When you think I turned away, in truth, I merely raised my hand to shield your eyes from the strong wind, and your name was still there beneath my palm. You think you slipped from my sight, but I have never lost track. You think your name was erased by what you have done, but I carved it with a cut that does not fade, does not blur, and cannot be worn away by storms. I did not write it in ink. I carved it with love. When you hear the true name I have given you, you will breathe more easily. No more bracing yourself. No more trying to prove anything. No more accusing yourself. You will see that the threshold I open is not for the perfect, but for the called. I do not place the door of blessing at the end of the road as a reward. I place it right before you as an invitation. You only need to step, not run. You only need to receive, not strive. I called your name before you were born, and I am calling your name today, not by your mistakes, not by your failures, not by what others say, but by the true name I have set upon you. You are called by love, not by shame. You are called by eternal intention, not by temporary memory. And when you answer that name, nothing in your past can keep your feet from crossing the threshold. You have believed the door would open on the day you had no mistakes left, on the day you felt good enough, worthy enough, strong enough to enter. You waited for your emotions to change first, waited for your heart to settle, waited to become someone else. But what I am doing does not depend on the unsteady rhythm of your feelings, and the door I open does not revolve around your perfection. There are doors that do not open when you are ready, but when I decree, the hour of blessing has come. You stand on the threshold, looking at the hinges, thinking they are waiting for you to polish away the rust. But those hinges have never groaned, because they were not set there to remind you of your flaws. They were set to move smoothly at the time I appointed. The door of blessing is not locked according to your standards, not oiled by your merits, not turned by the flutter of your heart. It turns by my intention. When I decide the time has come, the door does not interrogate the past. It opens to bring you into the present of grace. Many times you have stood outside, your hand on the door, afraid to push, because you thought you had to fix everything that was broken before entering. You told yourself, when I become better, I will step in. You believed. I must clean up all my chaos before I dare receive something beautiful. But blessing is not the prize at the end of the road. Blessing is the place where I want you to live so that you may be healed. You do not need to scrub your life clean on the front porch before entering my house. It is my house that has water, and light, and care. You cannot wash the dust of the road away without water. I did not tell you to be perfect before you come. I told you to come, and I will begin the rest. The door is open because the time has arrived, because I have spoken, because I have ordained it. You only need to step, not prove, receive, not repay, remain, not run. I want you to feel this like a light wind brushing your face. Peace does not come after success. It comes before the step. You imagined peace was the destination, but I give peace so you will dare to move. The door does not open like a crowded market gate. No noise, no rush, no demand for explanation. It opens like the door of a familiar home, with quiet hinges that neither squeak nor hurry. You place your hand on it, and instead of weight, you feel lightness. There is no voice inside that criticizes, no list of requirements pinned to the wall, no announcement that you must score perfectly to enter. This door is not built upon your achievements, but upon my love. You do not fully understand this, because all your life you have known doors that lock, doors that confine, doors that require permission, doors you must pound upon just to hear someone come. But this is a door I have built, with no report card hanging beside it. You ask, why now? And I answer, because I have appointed it. You ask, but I still lack so much. And I answer, I know, but I am the one who is enough. You ask, could I fail again? And I say, I walk with you. You ask, Might I bring shame to you? And I smile. Your name is engraved on the palm of my hand. I am not ashamed of the one I love. When you look at the door that stands open, you do not see your own accomplishments, but my will. Not because you have walked far without stumbling, but because I want you to walk farther. Not because you are worthy by your measure, but because you are worthy by my love. Not because you are perfect, but because I am perfect in the way I love. The door of blessing does not wait for the day you are good enough. It opens on the day I give grace. I do not call you to the threshold to reward you with a stern gaze. Like a teacher grading a paper, I open the door to gather you into peace. When you step through, you will feel the weight fall from your back like a backpack of stones slipping to the ground. You will breathe with a new breath, no longer holding your shoulders tight to carry burdens. You will see that the door did not open because you were complete, but because I appointed the time. When you understand this, your heart will lighten, your eyes will brighten, and your feet will move without dragging. You do not need to try to be worthy, you only need to agree with grace. For years you waited for the feeling of good enough to appear, but that feeling is not the key. I am the key. When the door opens, light pours out, but I see your hand still holding something very small, very familiar, very painful: self-blame. It is not as large as sin, not as heavy as guilt, but it clings tighter than anything else. Like a piece of lead in your palm, you think you are only holding a memory, only holding responsibility, only thinking carefully. But I see a small shadow resting in your hand. And when the hand holds shadow, the heart cannot fully receive light. You stand before the door like someone wanting to step in, but every time I invite you, go on, child. You look at your hand and whisper, wait, I am not ready. I must pay more. I am not worthy of this good thing. You do not know that those words are what hold you back. The door is not closed. Your hand has not let go. You have grown accustomed to gripping regret as evidence. You think, if I release it, it means I take lightly what happened. But release does not mean forgetting. Release means no longer letting the past direct the present. You cannot repair what is gone by hurting yourself today. When you cling to old shadows, you no longer have hands to receive new light. I have seen you stand so close to the threshold of blessing, yet every time your feet rise to step, you open your hand to stare at the shadow. You carry fragments of memory, failures, shame, fear. You say, if I enter while this remains, I will ruin everything again. But child, what ruins is not the stain on your hand, but your refusal to touch the water. My door is open. The water is ready. The light already shines. But to have clean hands, you must release. I say this not to accuse, but to free you. You cannot carry darkness and step into peace at the same time. Not because I forbid it, but because the two cannot exist together. Darkness held in the hand will draw light from the heart if you guard it like treasure. You think you must hold it to remember the lesson, to avoid repeating the past. But I see deeper. It is the fear of repeating that keeps you in the loop. I do not call you in to replay defeat. I call you in to end the cycle of defeat. When you keep turning your palm, staring at old fault, you close the door on your future with a very small gesture, clinging to what no longer has purpose. The door does not wait for perfection, but the door cannot pull in a gripping hand. The door invites, but you must release. For many years, you have lived on the boundary. You are used to the feeling of almost, nearly, but never stepping through. You thought I was testing you, but I see you have been testing yourself, creating examinations I never assigned. You examine yourself with questions: have I paid enough? Have I suffered enough? Do I remember my mistakes often enough? But child, this is not my measure. I do not build the threshold with bricks of self-punishment. I build with bricks of grace. I do not ask how long you have accused yourself. I ask whether you will let me hold your hand. If you cling to darkness, my hand cannot close fully around yours. I do not wrestle. I do not tear it away. I simply wait for the moment you desire to release. Not because I lack patience, but because love does not force. I will speak plainly so you will not be mistaken. No one is kept outside of blessing because they have not blamed themselves enough. And no one is brought into blessing because they have blamed themselves much. Blaming yourself is not a sign of repentance, but a trace of fear. And fear does not open the door, even when it looks holy, looks serious, looks responsible. The door does not respond to fear. The door responds to trust. When you believe that I have forgiven, that grace is enough. That love is stronger than memory. Your hand becomes light. Letting go is not a dramatic gesture. It is only the release of a finger. Yet, sometimes releasing a finger is harder than carrying the whole world, because you have become used to holding until you are calloused. I am not asking you to forget the lesson. I am asking you not to hold the lesson like a sharp stone in your hand. You can remember without pain. You can learn without condemning yourself. You can step without trembling. When you let go, your hands will be empty to receive what I give. The door does not close because of your mistakes, but it cannot welcome a hand that is clutched tight. The door opens to the one who knows that peace is not a price to pay, but a gift to receive. When you dare to stretch out your hand, you will feel the hinge breathe like a whisper, and you will find yourself passing through without strain, not because you are worthy by your habit of self-examination, but because I have appointed the hour of blessing. Letting go is the first step. After that, your feet will find their own way. You will discover that the threshold does not require you to kneel in shame, but invites you to stand upright in grace. The question is no longer, have I blamed myself enough, but will I allow him to lead me in? When your hand releases the shadows of the old, space within your heart suddenly becomes large enough for a greater truth. You do not need to prove your worth before stepping through the door of blessing. I am not inviting you into a place where you must present documents, list achievements, or stand to defend yourself before a cold council. You have lived that way for too long, always thinking you must show the world something in order to be allowed to breathe, to be allowed to rejoice, to be allowed to live. But I did not set a threshold before you so that you would prove anything. I set a threshold so you could receive. Your worth does not lie in how tightly you strain to appear deserving, but in the love I have poured out, proven by hanging myself upon wood at midday in the darkness. The cross is proof enough. You need add nothing to it. I know you are familiar with another system where acceptance comes only after performance, where hearts open only if you meet their expectations. You were taught that love is a reward, not a starting point. But I do not love you because you impress me. I love you because I choose. I have proven your worth by my self-emptying, by the price I paid, by bearing my own body for you. You need no further receipt to confirm that value. Every certificate has already been written in my blood. No evidence is stronger than my sacrifice. No verdict stands higher than my forgiveness. There is no court with more authority than the cross. If sin has been nailed there, You have no right to take it down and wear it around your neck like lead. You once believed, if I live well, if I do not fail again, if I accomplish something, if I am a good person, then I will be accepted. But I tell you, you were accepted before you lived well, before you accomplished anything. Acceptance is not a reward at the end of the road. It is the fire that warms you, so you have strength to walk. You do not need perfection to be in my house. You need to be in my house in order to begin changing. You do not enter because you are worthy. You enter because I have proven your worth by the price I paid. When you were far, I already loved you. When you did not understand me, I called your name. When you turned your face away, I stretched out my arms. My love did not wait for you to walk rightly in order to come. It came to lift you to your feet, to lead you into the right path. The cross is where every debate about value ends. There, you no longer need to defend yourself. You no longer need to present evidence. You no longer need to collapse into the cycle of self-blame. When you look at the cross, you will know that your worth is not proven by you, but by me. Everything I have done was not so you would stand outside, but so you would enter. Not so you would creep near timidly, but so you would walk straight and sure. You do not come trembling like a stranger. You come as one who belongs. The cross is not a warning, but an open door, not a voice of condemnation, but a voice of affirmation. You are enough in me. I do not speak this as theory. I carved it with nails and wood. When you lift your eyes, you will see what I want you to understand. You do not come to the door of blessing to perform, but to receive. People demand proof. I give my proof. People demand results. I give life. People demand achievements. I give identity. If anything needed to be proven, the cross has already proven it fully. But I do not require you to prove anything further. You only need to receive. With gratitude and reverence. When you step through the door, you do not step in by your own strength, but by the price already paid. The door opens because I have thought of you, loved you, and paid for you. All of that happened long before you imagined stepping through. Now is the time for you to enjoy your portion. Deep peace comes when you no longer demand yourself to be enough. Peace comes when you know that I am enough. Peace comes when you let the cross speak louder than accusation. Peace comes when you no longer strain to be loved, because I have already loved. You do not need to earn a place in my house by proving yourself. You only need to live in my house by trusting. This truth is light as breath, yet strong as a pillar. Blessing is not a reward for the perfect, but life for the redeemed. And you, my child, are that person. You once believed that blaming yourself, accusing yourself, striking your own heart with a whip was a sign of humility. You thought that when you bowed low enough, spoke the lowest of yourself, you were nearer to me, because I love the humble. But I tell you a truth you may never have dared to think. Not everything that looks like humility is humility. There is a hidden pride woven into your self-blame, and it escapes your notice because it wears the garments of morality. Looks like repentance, yet leads not to life. When you believe that your sin is greater than my grace, when you think you must pay long enough before you are worthy to return, when you believe that if you forget your faults too soon, I will forget your lesson. You are placing the weight of sin in your own hands instead of on the cross. You do not see that this is disguised arrogance. You are believing that your verdict over yourself is truer than mine. You thought shame was holiness, but shame heals no one. You thought self-blame was awakening, but self-blame saves no one. You believed you were protecting righteousness by holding your faults inside. But righteousness does not lie in punishing yourself. Righteousness lies in the cross. When you continue accusing yourself, you are saying that what I have done is not enough, that my blood has not washed everything, that I only forgave in part, and the rest you must pay for. You, fragile as you are, believe you can finish the portion I have not finished. You look at the ocean of grace and think your little bucket can help extinguish the storm. You do not see that this image is a paradox. It is not the bucket that saves the sea, but the sea that saves the bucket. The more you try to prove yourself through remorse, the more you believe you are contributing to the work of redemption. But redemption does not need collaborators in that way. It only needs receivers. I do not say this to make you feel more ashamed. I say it so that you may be free. When you do not recognize that hidden pride, you believe you are living holy, but in truth you are placing your own verdict above the verdict I have spoken. You say, I know I have been forgiven, but I must suffer a bit more, because I deserve it. You say, I am grateful to you, but my responsibility is to never forget my fault. You say, if I let go too soon, I will become careless. I hear these sentences, and I know they are not humility. Humility is believing that I have done enough. Hidden pride is believing that you must add something. The paradox of heaven is this: truly humble people do not hold their sins in their hands to remind themselves of their weakness. The humble place their sins at my feet and walk in peace. The humble do not say, I must suffer a little more. The humble say, I could never suffer enough to save myself, but the cross has saved me. The humble do not trust pain as a ransom. The humble trust blood. When self-blame becomes a private punishment to keep yourself in pain, that is not a grateful soul. It is a soul that does not believe grace is enough. Self-blame says, I have not completed my work. Humility says, I have completed it. And you believe. I want you to see this in gentle light. I do not reproach you for punishing yourself for so long. I only invite you to recognize the truth so that you may be free. Self-blame makes you think you are protecting my righteousness, but in truth it causes you to live as though my grace were fragile. It makes you believe that unless you keep yourself in shame, my grace will lose its power. It turns the cross into half a miracle, with the other half left for you to pay. But that is not good news. The good news is this: I have suffered enough. You add nothing to it, not because I do not need it, but because you cannot. When you open your eyes to this spiritual paradox, you will breathe more easily. You will see that letting go of self-blame is not forgetting the lesson, but honoring the fullness of the cross. You will know that true humility is not found in self-condemnation, but in surrender. Not, I deserve pain, but I surrender to the love that suffered in my place. You will discern the difference between the voice of shame and the voice of the Spirit. Shame strikes with a whip. The Spirit leads by hand. Shame keeps you outside the door. The Spirit brings you through, and when you walk through, you will not enter with your face bowed down, but with a heart deeply grateful, because you know you are not walking on self-proven worth, but on worth proven by the cross. When the hidden weight of pride drops from the heart, the small sound it makes is gentle, yet enough to reveal something deeper. Not every voice in your mind comes from me, even when it sounds familiar. There are sentences you have heard for so long that you believe they are truth, that they are conscience, that they are sobriety. But I see them as strange voices walking through the house, moving down the halls, opening drawers, rearranging things without permission. They do not shout. They do not slam doors. They do not make noise. Because noise is easy to detect, they whisper. And you assume the thoughts are your own. You have lived with them long enough to treat their words as nature, without asking who the true owner of the voice is. Often you hear words like, "You are too weak," "You will fail again," "There is no more chance for you," "Everyone else is better than you." And because these words do not come from outside but from within, you think they are the voice of truth. But I tell you, this sheep know the shepherd's voice, and they do not follow the voice of a stranger. A strange voice does not need to be violent to be dangerous. It only needs to convince you that it is mine. When it speaks in a familiar tone, you are not alert. When it uses your own memories as proof, you nod. When it quotes something from the past and stitches it into the present, you believe. But child, my voice does not push you into shame, does not throw you into despair, does not make you shrink inside. My voice leads, the strange voice condemns. My voice invites, the strange voice withdraws. My voice builds, the strange voice erodes. There are days you wake with heaviness, not because of anything great that has happened, but because the strange voice is already sitting in the chair, waiting for your eyes to open. It says, "Today will be hard. You are not enough. Do not expect anything." And you hear it the way a household hears the familiar phrases of a family member. You do not know that this voice is a stranger inside the house I built for you. It borrows memories, borrows fears, borrows habits, borrows words others have spoken, then turns them into self-reminders. I see it walking around, placing its hand on your shoulder, speaking in a tone that resembles mine, and you assume it is my warning. But my voice carries peace even when I awaken you. A strange voice carries fear even when it pretends to care. You ask, "Why do I believe them so easily?" I answer, "Because they come from inside, not from outside the door. If they came from outside, you would recognize and resist. But because they rise from memory, from wounded experience, from uncertainty, they sound like reality. You have stumbled before, so when the strange voice says, "You will stumble again," you nod. You have been rejected before. So when the strange voice says, "No one will choose you," you find it reasonable. You have been afraid before. So when the strange voice says, "Be careful, do not step," you stop. But I do not want you to live by memory. I want you to live by my voice. Memory speaks of the past. I speak of the way forward. Memory may be true, but it is not your teacher. I am your guide. I am not asking you to deny every thought, but I want you to discern which voice leads you into light and which voice leads you into shadows. When a voice comes and your heart tightens, your eyes dim, your hope shrinks, that is not my voice. When a sentence rises and makes you feel smaller, weaker, more blameworthy, that is not my voice. When an idea appears and makes your back bend as though carrying more stones, that is not my voice. I speak firmly yet gently, clearly yet full of love. I may point out what needs correction, but I do not push you away. I may warn you, but I do not make you collapse. The strange voice drains your strength. My voice gives strength. When you learn to discern, the cord that binds your thoughts begins to loosen. You realize that for many years you have listened to a strange voice and believed it was your own. But I say not everything that rises from within you is you. There are voices that come from wounds, from fear, from memory, from the enemy. I want to open your eyes so you do not live with that strange voice in your house as though it were family. When you hear my voice clearly, you will see that your house is wider and brighter. You will recognize that I am there, and that I am not as far as you imagined. I am standing right beside you, waiting for you to turn so I may lead. The sheep hear the shepherd's voice, and the shepherd never lets his sheep be lost when the sheep answer his call. You have lived many years with the sense that you are the sum of every failure that has passed. You gathered every broken moment, every stumble, every wrong word, every fragile minute, then pieced them together like fragments forming a face. You looked at it and said, "This is me." You believed that sin defined your nature, that the memory of mistakes was the map for your future, that the wrinkles of shame were marks of identity. But I do not look at you through the fragments, through that assembled face. I look through the blood. I do not use sin to define you. I use the blood that was shed for you. I do not ask for a list of your failures. I ask what I have done on your behalf. You are not the sum of your wounds. You are one who has been redeemed at immeasurable price. You are not a product of mistakes. You are the fruit of grace. When I see you, I do not see a courtroom with thick files filled with reports of collapse. I see the mark of blood on the doorframe, like the night of the Passover in Egypt, the night when judgment passed by but did not touch the house, marked in red. It was not because those inside were faultless, but because there was blood. It was not because they were worthy, but because I saw the sign of trust and obedience. The Passover gave you a pattern. I do not look for perfect people inside the house. I look for the red mark on the door. When I see that mark, I know judgment has passed, deliverance has come, and that house belongs to me. You are that house. The mark is not on wooden doors, but on your life, even when you do not see it. I see it. You imagined that sin is what keeps you close to me through fear. But I do not use fear to hold you. I use love. Sin may point to what must change, but it has no authority to define you. You were mistaken when you believed that your identity was the broken one, the blameworthy, the failure. You were mistaken when you thought every mistake added a new layer of identity. But your identity is not built from collapse. Your identity is built from redemption. My blood was shed not so you could carry the label forgiven, but so you could carry the label mine. The one who is forgiven does not merely escape punishment. The forgiven one becomes a child. You no longer stand in the courtyard waiting for a verdict. You enter the house, sit at the table, and receive bread. Your tears have flowed for a long time because of shame, fear, and the feeling of being unclean. But today I want your tears to fall for another reason: release. When you know that sin is no longer the lens through which I see you, the burden falls from your back. You no longer carry your file in front of you like a name tag. You have worn it so long that you believed it was your face. But my eyes do not look at the tag. My eyes look at the blood. I do not judge your life by the accumulated list of failures, but by the price paid to rescue you. I did not choose you because of what you have done, but because of what I have done. I do not love you because you are good, but because I am good, and that is what forms your identity. There are nights when you lie in the dark and hear a strange voice saying you are not clean enough to be loved. You hold your breath, afraid that I am watching the stains. But I do not use darkness to measure you. I use the light of the cross. When I look at you, I do not see a file of sins. I see you under the light of blood that is washed. I see you as one who has been saved, not one who must save yourself. I see you as one who has been bought with ransom, not one who must pay. I see you as family, not as someone standing outside the fence. When you understand this, your tears will fall like early rain, no longer salty with shame, but sweet with freedom. You are not defined by the darkness that passed through your life, but by the light that has poured over it. You ask, "But I have sinned." I answer, "I know, and I have paid." You ask, "Am I worthy?" I answer, "My blood has spoken." You ask, "Must I pay more?" I say, "No one can add to what has been paid in full." Your definition is not found in the record of offenses, but in the seal of blood. When you stand before the threshold, you do not step forward by merit, but by protection. Passover is the proof. I look for the mark, not the scorecard, and I have seen that mark upon you. Therefore, blessing does not avoid you. Blessing welcomes you. You no longer bow as one condemned. You lift your head as one rescued. You still think forgiveness comes in droplets, like medicine dripped into a wound, drop by drop after you prove you have changed. You imagine I wait to see if you stand firm long enough, repent deep enough, promise strong enough, before I pour a little more grace. But my forgiveness does not come in portions. Child, it comes whole. It is not a debt you pay in installments, fearing one day you may not have enough. It is a bill already paid, in full, stamped in red, with no lines left demanding payment. You do not need to be perfected to receive, you receive. And then you are renewed. You do not need to be good before you come, and you are made new. Forgiveness does not follow your effort, it precedes it. It is the ground on which you stand, not the reward if you qualify. I did not ask Peter to measure the weight of his remorse before forgiving. I did not require the adulterous woman to write a plan of change before I said, "I do not condemn you." I did not wait for James and John to lose their ambition and temper before calling them sons of thunder. My forgiveness is not a broom that sweeps one corner. It is a precise fire that burns the old house and rebuilds it. I do not patch flaws. I change identity. When I forgive, I do not keep a debt record in a drawer to bring out later as a reminder. I throw it far away, to where even your eyes cannot find it. You think I have not forgotten because you have not forgotten, but your memory is not the measure of my heart. You have locked yourself in the room of shame, holding the key, thinking that I am the one who closed the door, but the key is in your hand. And I stand outside knocking not to condemn, but to invite you into the light. You have grown used to living with the thought, "I am forgiven if," and I hear that thought like chains dragging at your feet. If you are good enough, if you are steady enough, if you are holy enough. But let me tell you truly, if I had to wait for you to be enough, you would never be ready. Grace is not the reward of the victorious, it is the strength of the weak. I do not wait for you to change so I may love you. I love you so that you may change. You do not need to strain to become worthy. You only need to open your hands. Forgiveness came before you knew you needed it. While you were far off, I ran while you were confused. I embraced before you asked. I gave. What has been paid does not demand more signatures. You do not carry a wallet full of merit. You carry an open heart and step in. What astonishes you is not that I have enough mercy. What astonishes you is that I had already decided to give it before you ever failed. Forgiveness is never a surprise to me. I saw you slipping, and I prepared the robe, the ring, the feast. You imagine that I discovered the mistake and then came up with a rescue plan. But from the beginning, redemption has been my story. not yours. When you naively chose your own path, I had already prepared the way back. When you went astray, I did not update a plan. I had a plan from the start. Full forgiveness means you do not need to calculate how much you have received. You receive 100% from the beginning, so that from there, you may grow in love, not in fear. A wonder will come when you realize this. The deepest change does not happen when you try to turn yourself into someone new, but when you know that you are already loved as your true self. When you know the debt has been paid, you no longer live sparingly, with trust. You walk lightly, not because you ignore the weight of the past, but because you know it is no longer hanging above you. You lift your head, not out of pride, but because your shoulders are no longer hunched. I want you to understand, no one loves you more than I do, and no one forgives you more than I do. When you embrace full forgiveness, you will know peace in a way you never knew before. No more daily inspection of yourself to detect new faults. No more waiting for judgment to fall. You walk with gratitude, not fear. Forgiveness is not a white cloth laid over old mistakes to keep them quiet beneath a layer of fabric. Forgiveness is a key that opens both directions. It not only unlocks behind you, where the past once held you, it unlocks before you, where you have not dared to walk. You think forgiveness is only about what has been erased, closed. Never mention it again. But I do not only clean up behind you, I open the road in front of you. Forgiveness does not only close a painful door, it opens a door into light. You are standing at that threshold. And the remarkable thing is this: the wind is blowing from the front, not the back. When you live in shame, you face the past. You examine the footprints, measure the cracks, count the falls. You hold a magnifying glass to every scratch, as though appraising a damaged object. But forgiveness turns you around. It turns your whole body toward the road ahead. Do you see? Before you is a path, not a report. You are no longer tied to dead roots. You have been grafted into a living branch. Forgiveness does not merely remove your name from the list of the guilty, it places your name on the list of the heirs. When I forgive, I do not say, "Good, you owe nothing now." I say, "Now, walk." There are people who live their whole lives as though they have been forgiven, yet remain pressed against the wall, afraid to pass through the gate. You are inside the house, yet your heart remains outside. You are free, yet old habits whisper, "It is safer here." But my forgiveness does not create a tiny shelter, it opens a road. You are not merely spared punishment, you are invited into purpose. The back door is locked. The front door is open. The key turns both ways. My child, behind you, memory no longer has the right to pull you back. Before you, no one can block your way. Forgiveness does not end the story. Forgiveness begins the real one. You will notice something strange when you stop turning your back on the future. The light changes. Shadows no longer cover your face. They lie behind your feet. The sun has not moved, only your direction has. Forgiveness changes direction. Like a freed prisoner, you need more than an open door. You need the courage to step through. I have opened the door, my child. I have oiled the hinges. The door does not creak. It does not resist. The wind of a new season is blowing. You do not have to wait for a perfect state to enter. You step, and you will grow inside your steps. Forgiveness does not demand perfection before you walk. Forgiveness teaches you freedom with every step. Every time you look forward and hesitate, I stand beside you and say, there is nothing in the past strong enough to stop you. Not because the past disappeared, but because it no longer locks your door. The door is open. The path is clear. You do not live as a victim of history, you live as one who is called. Forgiveness does not merely erase an old debt, it signs a new check for the future. I do not wipe the slate so that you will sit still. I wipe it so that you may go. Forgiveness turns the verdict, it is finished, into the invitation, begin. You are no longer required to pay for the past, you are invited to receive the blessing of the present and the future. As you walk, you will see the door behind you close gently, and before you lies the road that leads into light. You still imagine that somewhere in the heavenly realm, I have a sealed room full of files bearing your name. You imagine that when you fail, an angel adds a paper, stamps it, and places it in a drawer, so that on Judgment Day I may open it and read every fault. You imagine I keep every detail, the day, the hour, the expression, the words, the weakness. You imagine a thick dossier, and that if I simply opened it, you would tremble. But here is the confusing truth. I do not keep the record of your wrongs, only you do. The dusty cabinet is not in my house, it is in your heart. You open it every time you feel unworthy. Every time you feel like a failure, you are the one turning the pages, not me. Often you think I am reminding you, but that voice is memory. You hear the old voice and think it is mine. I do not bring up old sins to accuse you. I do not repeat what my blood has erased. When I forgive, I do not move the file to another shelf. I do not keep the file. I erase it. I cast it into the depths of the sea. And there are no pages left to read. You, because you cannot see, do not believe. You ask, but I remember so clearly. How can you forget? I smile. It is not that I do not remember, it is that I do not keep. There are two ways to forget: either memory fades, or you choose not to hold on. My memory is not weak, my heart chooses what remains. You look at me with the eyes of someone who has been reminded of their faults all their life. You are used to being remembered by your failures. You are used to criticism, comparison, accusation. So you assume I am the same, keeping records, waiting for a moment to open them. You fear I might say, "You did it again." You fear I might look at you and shake my head, but I am not like that. When I forgive, I do not hide the file behind my back. I tear it. You are the one who gathers the pieces, tapes them back together, arranges them by date, and stores them. You revisit them every time you feel insecure. You say, "This is why I am unworthy. This is why I cannot be blessed." You keep evidence against yourself, even when I have erased it all. You ask, "But why can't I forget?" I answer, "Because you believe that memory keeps you humble, but it only keeps you captive. You think keeping records will stop you from repeating mistakes, but it only keeps you afraid. You hold on to the file like an unhealed wound. You believe it is vigilance, but it is self-binding. When I look at you, I do not look at the cabinet. I look at the heart. You are standing at the threshold of blessing, but your hands cling tightly to old files. You want to move forward, but the weight is too much. I do not tell you to throw them away because they are unimportant. I tell you to throw them away because they have already been paid. You imagine I am following your every step to take notes, but the truth is, I follow your every step to lift you up, not to record, but to rescue. If I keep any file, it is the record of grace, the times I caught you, the times you stood again, the times you returned. I remember the day you prayed. I remember the day you believed. I remember the day you looked up. And that record is not on a shelf, It is engraved on my heart. You remember the wounds. I remember the journey. You lock yourself in a dusty cabinet. I open the wide doors of heaven and invite you out. When you stand before me, I do not ask, "What did you do wrong?" I ask, "Do you want to walk with me?" I do not count your faults. I count your breaths. I do not record your sins. I record the moments you believe. My love is not a memory of every failure. My love is an ocean that erases every trace. You cannot change the past, but you can stop visiting it every night. When you open the filing cabinet, the dust rises and your eyes sting. You cry, not because of me, but because of the memories. You think I made you feel pain, but it is you who did. I stand beside you and say, "Let me carry these files." Yet you hold them close, because you think they are part of you. But you are not an archive. You are a temple of the Holy Spirit. You are a place of life, not of records. There is a picture I want you to see, your filing cabinet flung open to the wind. The pages that once recorded sin, failure, weakness, self-condemnation are lifted away, carried into the sky, dissolving into the distance. You reach out to catch them, because you are used to living with evidence. But the wind is stronger. I stand beside you and say, you do not need to hold them anymore. You will tremble, because emptiness can feel strange. You have grown familiar with weight. You are used to waking every day and finding yourself wrong. When the cabinet is empty, you feel light. You think, can it really be this simple? And I say, your mistakes do not define you. My decision defines you. The dusty cabinet is gone. The door before you is still open. I do not keep evidence to use against you. You are not the accused. You are my child. You do not step into blessing because you erased enough files. You step into blessing because I erased them. You may not yet dare to believe, but you will learn. Every time you reach for the old drawer, you will remember it is empty. You will feel your heart lighter. Your hands no longer occupied with useless papers. You will step. You will breathe. You will lift your head. Freedom will come not because the past disappears, but because it is no longer kept. You always imagined a court standing over your life, where I sat as judge, gavel in hand, indictment ready to read. You trembled, waiting for the strike, waiting for the sentence. But I am not the one sitting there. The one on the bench is you. You have built your own courtroom inside your heart, with laws written by memory, witnesses drawn from fear, the prosecutor being the strange voice, and the accused also being you. In that court, I only appear at the end, not to defend you, but to certify the verdict you already pronounced. You hold the gavel, you strike, you sentence, and you imprison yourself in an invisible cell without anyone needing to lock the door. It hurts to say this, but it is true. You have been a harsher judge to yourself than I have ever been. I rebuke to heal. You condemn to punish. I point out faults to lead you to light. You dig up faults to stay in darkness. I close wounds with oil and wine. You reopen them with the nails of self-blame. There were nights you wept, thinking I was judging you, but in truth you were standing before a mirror, reading a verdict written by your own hand. You forgot that I am Father, not prosecutor. You treat yourself as an enemy, while I treat you as beloved. In that courtroom you built, the law never pardons, the judge never tires, the trial never ends. Every time you fail, you reopen the files. Add another sheet, and pronounce another sentence. The prison has no iron bars, but it has rails made of self-accusing words. I am not good enough. I do not deserve. I will fail again. I am dangerous. I cause harm. Those bars need no lock. You sit inside and believe I locked the door, but the key is always in your hand. I stand outside, not shouting, not pounding the walls, only saying, "My child, open it." Here is a deep paradox. You imprison yourself to punish yourself, thinking it keeps you humble. But self-condemnation is not humility. It is a hidden pride. It says your failure is greater than my grace. It says your verdict matters more than mine. It says the cross was not enough. The blood was not enough. That I have done my part, but you must do more. This wears you out, drains you, makes you fear the light. Because in the light that self-made court has no power. You call it facing the truth, but it is actually self-punishment. You call it responsibility, but it is judgment. I do not use the courtroom to train you. I use love. I want you to see another picture. You are sitting alone in an invisible cell. The door slightly ajar. Light slipping in. Dust floating in the beam. There is no guard. No chain. Only habit keeping you in place. You hear my footsteps coming. Not the hard steps of a judge, but the gentle approach of a father. I sit down by the door, not demanding you stand, simply present. You lift your eyes and see that I am looking at you, not with judgment, but with tenderness. I do not speak much. I do not argue with your files. I simply extend my hand. You have imprisoned yourself long enough. Come out. In that moment, pain washes through you like a wave. Not pain from my anger, but the pain of truth arriving. You realize you have been judge, jury, and jailer. The hurt does not come from me, it comes from recognizing reality. And in that truth, relief begins. You see, the door was never locked. You only need to stand. I do not make you run. I do not urge you forward. I walk beside you. Every step you take is a sentence dissolving. Every breath is a sheet of paper turning to dust. The courtroom vanishes as you enter the light. No judge's chair. No gavel. No indictment. Only you and me. I do not call you out to judge you. I call you out to live. You have lived long enough in the courtroom. Now is the time to step out. Not to prove anything, but to receive. Not to present arguments, but to breathe. Not to debate, but to love. You are child, not defendant. I am father, not judge, and the cell is not your destiny. The invisible prison is not your home. Light is waiting. You have stood so long in the hallway of that court, waiting for a voice to cry, "Enter." You imagined cold wooden benches, heavy, long tables, stern eyes, and difficult questions. You prepared your defense, rehearsed your reasons, practiced your explanations. But when the door opens, it is not a courtroom. There is no judge, no gavel, no witness stand. I did not summon you to a trial. I summoned you to a banquet. The smell of bread, warm light, cushioned chairs, wine poured. Ready, a feast robe waiting on the hook, not striped prison clothes. You step in, bewildered, because your mind came prepared to defend. But I came prepared to welcome. I do not want to hear your case file. I want to hear your laughter. I do not require proof of reform. I simply ask your heart to sit. You still stand near the doorway like a guest, unsure if you belong. You imagine I will inspect your wounds, weigh your faults, but I only say, this seat is yours. I have waited. The light on the table is not there to expose stains, but to shine on your face, made beautiful by peace. No one asks why you are here. No one looks at you with suspicion. The cups set on the table are not to prove your worth, but to tell you that you belong. You are still wearing a prisoned garment in your heart. You think it is your own skin. You dare not touch the garment of celebration because you are afraid of staining it. But I walk toward you, unhurried, without demand, and place my hand on your shoulder. That prison garment is not your identity. Take it off. You tremble. You say, but this garment is so familiar. I have worn it for many years. I answer, familiar is not the same as true, and when you remove it, it falls away like a layer of dust. I clothe you with a new garment not because you are worthy, but because you are mine. The garment is soft, fragrant, fitting. It does not squeeze. It does not bind. It simply embraces you, like something that has always belonged to you. You sit at the table, yet doubt lingers. It feels real, but you hardly dare believe. I do not push you to rejoice. I simply sit beside you. You look around and see empty places. Those seats are not for those who have never failed. They are for those who have been called home. The banquet table is not the place of the perfect. The banquet table is the place of the beloved. Every chair holds a story, and your story is not lesser. You do not need to tell me the whole trial. I already know. I only want to hear you speak of the present, of the fact that you are here, of the fact that you are sitting beside me. The light in the banquet room is different from the light of a courtroom. It does not glare into your face, does not expose every crease. It spreads, embraces, warms. You feel yourself grow, not shrink. Your shoulders drop. You breathe. A strange sensation, light, wide, at ease. No one waits for you to fail. No one is taking notes. No one counts your every move. You can eat. You can drink. You can raise your glass. I invite you to raise your glass with me, not to celebrate triumph, but to celebrate your return. You have not returned from a victorious battlefield. You have returned from a prison of your own making, and that is worth more than any conquest. This image, I want you to keep you at the table. The garment of celebration on your shoulders, light upon your hair, warmth around your body, a cup in your hand, and I beside you. There is no indictment on the table, only bread. You are not here to defend yourself. You are here to be present. I did not bring you from one courtroom to another. I brought you from the defendant's seat to the seat of the beloved. You are welcomed, not by achievement, but by belonging. When you sit at the table with me, the first thing that happens is not music, not applause, but a silence strange, deep as an ancient well, clear as a spring. This silence is not frightening, it heals. There is no accusation echoing, no whisper of guilt, no verdict circling. The voices that once shouted in your ears, pounded in your chest, pressed against your ribs, they do not disappear because you argued or because you won. They disappear because of my presence. When you are near me, judgment goes quiet. There is no room for it to speak. Like the day Daniel sat in the lion's den, not because the lions lost their teeth or their hunger, but because an angel closed their mouths. Not because the accuser does not exist, but because I stand between. There were days when you fought accusation like a person fighting the wind. The harder you pushed, the more exhausted you became. You used logic to refute, discipline to shield, comparison to soothe yourself. But like waves against the rocks, they returned. You thought you had to crush every voice, prove every point, answer every question. You thought peace would come when you won the argument. But peace does not come because you have won. Peace comes because you sit. When you sit beside me, accusation loses its authority. Where I am present, accusation must fall silent, not because it has run out of arguments, but because I have spoken enough. You are surprised to see that no defense takes place at the table. You do not have to explain. I do not ask. Why did you do that? What have you learned? Are you certain you will not repeat it? I do not bring out old records when your hand reaches for the bread. You receive, and silence settles. This silence is not empty. It is full of presence, full of warmth, full of a truth deeper than words. You belong. In that place, the accuser cannot find footing. His voice fades into a lost breath outside the door. Not because you shout louder, but because I sit nearer. This silence has weight. It makes you sit firm. Your shoulders rest. Your heart slows. You realize you have lived for so long in noise, in the whisper of regret, in the echo of fear, in the footsteps of memory running down the corridor. But now there is quiet. Not dead quiet, but living quiet. Quiet like the forest after wind. Quiet like the sea after a storm. Quiet like a sanctuary after prayer. In that quiet, you hear what is not voice. You hear me. You do not hear sentences. You hear presence. And in that presence, every accusation becomes small, then dissolves. Accusation once had many places within you. It sat on the judge's chair. It hovered in the kitchen. It waited in the hallway. It touched your shoulder when you looked in the mirror. But when you sit with me, there is no place left. The chair beside you is not for it. It is not invited. It has no authority. My presence is the boundary. You do not need to chase it away. I have sent it out. As the angel closed the mouths of lions, not by sword but by authority, I close the mouth of accusation not by argument but by love. You will see this happen slowly, yet surely wherever you are near me, accusation grows weak, not because you become perfect, but because you become close, not because you never fail, but because you are no longer alone. The lions still have teeth, but they do not bite. The verdict still has words, but the words are never read. Accusation may arrive, but it does not remain. Deep quiet is not the absence of sound, but the presence of me. In that quiet, peace does not require effort. It arrives on its own. You have believed that the threshold is something far away, a golden gate at the end of the road, on a high hill with white clouds, with the trumpets of angels sounding from afar. You thought there must be a great sign, a dramatic change, a visible miracle for it to be called a threshold. But the threshold I speak of is not on a mountain. It is right before you in your room, in the kitchen, at your work. In this morning's breath, it is not loud. It is not dazzling. It is like the familiar doorway of a home you pass through every day without realizing that each step is bringing you into a new season. Every morning when you rise, there is a small decision to continue accusing yourself or to open to grace. Every moment when you are about to speak the old heavy sentence to yourself, there is a small pause, a breath, a second of silence, and listening for my voice. The threshold is in these moments, not in the great seconds written in books, but in the quiet seconds of ordinary life, when you stand before the mirror and do not repeat, "I am shameful." That is a step through the threshold. When you choose a gentle word instead of self-punishment, another step. When you allow yourself to smile without interrogation, another step. Small steps become a great journey. You have grown used to looking for something grand to prove that you have changed. You waited for strong winds, thunder, trembling, but often a new season arrives like a quiet morning. When you open the door and see the light is different without knowing why. That is how thresholds are. They do not perform. They simply appear. You only need to step. I do not ask you to leap far. I only invite you to lift your foot from the old place. If you stand and look long enough, you will see it, the thin line beneath your feet. A small mark no one praises. Yet beyond it, the atmosphere shifts. No more prison, no more court, no more prison clothes, only a familiar house. Light, the smell of bread, the warmth of me. I know you fear big things. You tremble when you think of changing your whole life, a future that must become different. But I do not place a whole life on your shoulders at once. I place one step. Today's step. The threshold does not require you to see the entire road. It only requires you to trust me for this step. You do not need a map. You need my hand. For this small step, taken in faithfulness, will lead to the next. No one knows when the brilliant light will come, but those who walk, step by step, will see it. Those who stand before the threshold, waiting for perfection, will think the door is still closed, while it has been open all along. Look around the chair you sit on, the cup in your hand, the room you are in. This is not a place of judgment. This is the threshold of blessing. When you sit with me, the air changes. There is no roar of lions, no chains, only peace. Peace is not a theory, it is a scent, a light, a breath. When peace arrives, you will notice that the threshold is so near, it is almost strange. Just step down from the chair, through the doorway, onto the porch. Not a far land, not a dream. Today, right here, take the key that has been in your pocket all along, not the key that opens a cage, but the key that opens the heart, and you will realize what I have prepared is not a vague future, it is a hot meal, a banquet robe, a chair already set. You are not stepping into emptiness. You are stepping into home. The threshold does not demand you cross a desert. The threshold asks you to cross yourself. Not far, not hard, not unreal, only near, only true, only trust. Each breath is an opportunity. Each dawn is an invitation. You do not need to gather courage for the whole year, only for today, only for this step, only for the threshold in front of you. There were many times in your life when you stood at the very threshold I opened, yet you did not step, not because the door was closed, not because the path was dark, not because I was absent. You stopped, not because you did not know, but because you believed you were not worthy. That image repeats more often than you remember. There were mornings when you woke and saw a small opportunity, a quiet invitation, a simple joy. But you hesitated. You stood at the threshold, hand on the familiar frame, and said to yourself, "Not today. I am not enough. I am not clean. I am not ready." Then you turned away, believing I was waiting for a better version of you before opening the door, while the door had been open for a long time. You do not remember those moments in detail, but in feeling, a gentle sadness settling in the heart, like a regret you dare not name. You stepped back, like someone arriving too early for an appointment, thinking you did not belong. But I saw you. I saw your eyes look into the light and then withdraw. I saw your hand touch the frame and then fall. I heard your sigh, soft as wind across dry leaves. No one stood there to accuse you, only me, beside you, not pushing, not pressuring, just waiting. You thought the door was not ready. I knew you did not believe. The difficulty was not the door, it was the conditions you placed upon your own heart. There were times you watched from a distance as others stepped through the door and lived in the light. You smiled for them, yet inside a small voice whispered, "I am different. I carry a mark, so I am not allowed." You did not say it aloud, but your actions spoke. You chose to stand behind, to be the observer, the encourager, the one who wishes well. But I never called you to stand behind. I called you to follow me. You are not a visitor outside the fence. You are the one with the key. You simply did not use it. I remember every moment when you almost stepped, then stopped. I do not blame you for stopping. I grieve because you believed something untrue. You thought the threshold was a reward for the worthy, when it is a gift of love. You thought you needed to be ready, when the threshold is the place where readiness grows. You looked at the banquet robe on the hook and thought, "Maybe when I am better." But that robe is not for the good, it is for the loved. When you turned away, I did not close the door. I kept it open. One day you would return, and I wanted you to see that the hinges were still smooth, the light still gentle, the warmth still spreading. You have stood at the door of small things, a simple apology, a meeting of reconciliation, a step of trust, a small joy, and you have stood at the door of larger things change, decisions, stepping out of darkness. In those moments, you believed you were not strong enough. But strength is not born before the threshold, it is born when you cross it. For many years you believed you needed to reach a standard. But I never wrote that standard. You wrote it. You placed it. You kept it. Then you examined yourself, rejected yourself, and stepped back. I watched and whispered, "You do not need the perfect version of yourself to step. You need only yourself. Right now." That gentle sadness, I see it. It is not despair, but the sorrow of something unlived, like a flower blooming late because the air is cold, not because the seed is missing, like arms opening, then withdrawing, not because they are unloved, but because they cannot quite believe they are loved. I do not blame. I wait. Each time you turned away, I walked with you, not to reproach, but to accompany. There are days you stand before the door, then step back, then stand again, like someone learning to walk on new ground. I am there. I do not lose patience. You think I ask for long strides, but small steps are still steps. Then there will be a moment very near when you stand before the door again, not with trumpets, not with lightning, but with quiet. You will breathe in, not from fear, but from peace. You will not look for a great feeling. You will look for a small trust. You will place your hand on the familiar frame. And the only truth you need to remember is this: you do not step because you are worthy, you will step. And then you will see you belong. When you step, the first thing you will find is not applause, but light. Light makes everything clear. No one is waiting to judge. Only a table already set. You may regret the years of standing outside. I know, but I do not let regret become a burden. I turn it into gentle resolve. You do not need to waste time asking, "Why did I not step sooner?" I say. Now is still the right time. I do not measure timing by your calendar. I measure by love. The moment you wish to return is the moment the door is still open. The day you decide is the day the threshold becomes a road. You are not late. You are on time for the blessing prepared for you. So, child, the sadness of standing, stopping, turning away will give space to the joy of stepping. You will no longer live as a watcher outside. You will enter the house. You will hear me call your name. You will sit at the table. You will laugh. You will breathe. And in each small step, each ordinary moment, you will see the miracle. The door does not need to slam. It only needs someone to cross it. You have stood before the door many times. Now it is time to step. You have grown used to thinking that in order to step through the door, you must prove that you are worthy. You have tried to arrange the pieces of your life, the disciplines, the efforts, as someone gathering evidence for a trial. You collect your good actions in your hands and look at them to see whether you may ask for permission to step forward. When you see little, you bow your head. When you see enough, you lift it. But today I tell you, this worthiness does not come from you. Worthiness comes from me. Therefore you may step, not because of yourself, but because of me. My child, I placed the garment on your shoulders before you even knew its name. Not a garment of reward, not a garment for one who has won after a competition, but a garment for the one who has been called home. That garment does not wait for you to finish your work. It waits for you to open your hands. You do not search for the garment searches for you. You do not hunt for rest hunts for you. You do not have to prove, you only have to receive. This is the spiritual paradox. One who still seeks by their own strength has not found, but one who opens their hands receives. For years you believed you needed to be better for me to approve. You tried to become a version that was beautiful enough, skilled enough, holy enough, steady enough. You ran circles around that idea like someone circling a dry well, hoping at last to find water. But the water is not there. The water is where I stand. I did not call you because you met the standard, but because I love. I placed the garment on your shoulders like a father placing a cloak on the returning child, while the dust of the road still clung to the skin, while the legs still trembled, while the sweat was still salty. I did not wait for you to wash before I embraced. I embraced, and then you knew you were clean. Look back and you will see this in the worst moments. I did not turn away. It was not when you were steady that I came close. I was closest when you thought you were most ruined. You remember the days when your pillow was wet with tears, the nights you believed you had failed, the moments you said, "I don't deserve anything good." It was then that I stood near, not to remind you of your faults, but to remind you of your name. Who you are does not come from the stains on your hands, but from the name I speak. You are not worthy because you are flawless. You are worthy because I have decided. My will is stronger than your will. My word stands firmer than the words you speak over yourself. I know there is a voice in your mind that whispers, worthiness must come from me. I must prove. I must carry. But that voice is not mine. It is an old voice, learned from days when others placed conditions over you. They said you were only worthy when you performed. They loved you when you were useful. They turned away when you were weak. You carried their laws into the spiritual world and imagined I was like them. You thought I would review the file, weigh, approve. But I am not a distant judge. I am Father. When the Father sees you, He does not ask for grades. He asks, "Where have you been? Come and eat." That is what I say, come to my table. I place the garment on your shoulders, not because you are perfect, but because you belong. You are not worthy to receive the garment. The garment makes you worthy. You are not worthy to attend the feast. The feast places you in the right place. Every good thing is not a reward for achievement, but the result of love. If worthiness came from you, it would shake with moods, with failures, with good or bad days. But worthiness comes from me. So it stands like stone, untouched by rain, untouched by wind, untouched by judgment. Lift your chin, not in arrogance, not in pride, simply to receive. You have bowed long enough, believing that only others were chosen. But I speak your name, not because you have no faults, but because those faults have been covered. Not because you did right, but because I did right. Not because you paid in full, but because I have paid in full. You are not the one who arrives late at the end of the line, waiting to see what remains. You are the one I call out from the shadows, set before bread and wine, and say, "Eat, drink," not because you are worthy, but because you are given. You will see this as you step. Peace does not come from calculation, but from receiving. You will take one small step and find the ground firm beneath you, not because you are heroic, but because I have built. You will see you do not need to cling to the wall like someone begging for permission. You will walk straight, without trembling, because I have gone before you. Nothing in this house requires a permit. You are not inspected before entering. You are invited. As you step, the light wraps you. As you sit, the burden falls. You no longer hold yourself in a posture of defense. You are an honored guest, not an intruder. Worthiness does not come in fragments. It comes whole. It does not arrive on the day you feel good. It arrives on the day I decide, and I have decided. Blessing does not come because you have proven. Blessing comes because I give. The only thing you must not do is refuse. You cannot earn what I give. You can only open your hands, and when you open your hands, you will find yourself standing differently, chin lifted, eyes bright, breath deep. Not the confidence of one who is perfect, but the confidence of one who is loved. I tell you this so that you will no longer hesitate at the door. Good does not come by force. It comes by belonging. You belong to me. Therefore, you may step. No proving, no straining, no hiding. The garment is already on your shoulders. The verdict is silent. The table is set. The threshold is open. The rest is simply to step. You often think that stepping through the threshold is a single moment, a special day, a night of awakening, an event that changes everything. You wait for a strong feeling, a racing heart, a blazing light, so you may know you have crossed. But the spiritual threshold is not like a stage door that opens only once. It is like a door within your house that you pass every morning. The light on the floor changes with the hour, but the door remains. Crossing is not an event, it is a rhythm. Each day is a choice to stand in light. not in self-condemnation. Each day is a whisper. Today I will not punish myself. Today I will walk with him. My child, look down at your feet. The light on the floor is not the same as yesterday. It is longer or shorter, depending on the sun, but it always finds a way to touch. The floor has not changed much, but the light always comes. Crossing the threshold is like that. You do not need strong emotions. You only need to let the light touch your heart. You take one step into brightness, then another, then another. One day you will realize you have been in the light so long you forgot the darkness that once bound you. There are mornings when you wake with a heavy mind, and old self-accusations wait at your lips. In that very moment stands the threshold of the day. You can remain in darkness by repeating the old verdict, or you can step into light by breathing deep and remembering He has already forgiven. I do not need to retry my own case. The threshold does not require strength, it requires awareness. Light does not ask you to create it, only not to pull the curtain closed. You think you have crossed many times, yet find yourself returning to self-blame. You feel sad about that. But I say it is all right. The light is still on the floor. No one asks you to walk perfectly. You only need to keep walking. Accusation will call you back to shadow, but light is patient. Every day there is a fine line between shadow and brightness. No one sees it with the eye, but you feel it in the heart. When you choose to forgive yourself in a small thought, that is a step. When you smile at yourself instead of shaking your head in disappointment, that is a step. When you say, God is with me, even though I am not yet perfect, that is a step. Stepping through is not a leap. It is a rhythm of walking. A person cannot jump from the living room to the bedroom in a single bound, but they can go step by step. You will see every small step has a spiritual echo. Every morning you choose to stand in the light. The invisible chains grow a little weaker, not because you are trying hard to break them, but because the light makes them brittle. Self-blame cannot endure the light for long. It lives on darkness, on secrecy, on self-accusations no one else hears. But when you open the door and step into the light, it loses its power. I do not ask you to speak grand words. I ask you to tell the truth to your own heart. I am loved. I am forgiven. I do not have to strain to be worthy. These sentences are light on the floor. They do not dazzle, but they are clear. They do not show off, but they are strong. As you stand in the light, you will see everything around you shift as well. It is not that the world suddenly becomes perfect, but that the way you stand in the world changes. You stand a little straighter, breathe a little deeper, see a little farther. Each day may hold a small battle. Self-blame will call you with familiar lines. Why did you do that? You are not good enough. You always fail. These sentences once held great power because you heard them alone, in the dark. But when you stand in the light, you hear them differently. You hear their weakness. You hear me speaking over them. You are not defined by your mistakes. You are defined by love. The wider the light on the floor, the quieter the voice of accusation becomes, not because it disappears at once, but because it no longer rules. My child, remember this. The light on the floor each day is a promise. It says you do not have to return to the old dungeon. You can walk in the light today, and tomorrow, and the next day. Stepping through is not a finished achievement. It is a living relationship. You walk because I am there. You walk because the door is open. You walk because the light has come. And with every step you grow more into your true self, not the one carrying the weight of guilt, but the one carrying my warmth. If one day you forget and stand in the dark longer than before, do not be ashamed. The light does not get angry. The light waits. It will slip in through the crack of the door, thin as silk, gentle as dawn. You only need to look. When you see a streak of light on the floor, you will remember the threshold is still here. I can still step. And you step not loud, not rushed, not dramatic, simply real, simply present. That is spiritual victory, choosing light instead of self-blame. Day after day, as you walk, you will hear a very soft sound, so quiet that others may not notice, but your soul will recognize it at once. It is the sound of something falling from your shoulders, not a loud crash, not a violent collapse, but the slip of a heavy weight you did not even know you had been carrying, like a backpack full of stones that has bent your back for many years. And only when it hits the ground do you realize how strangely light your spine feels. You did not know how heavy it was until it fell. Self-blame always works like that. It does not shout. It does not boast. It simply lies there, heavy and silent, making you bow your head and believe that is your natural posture. There are seasons when you live leaning forward, shoulders drawn in, breath short. You think it is ordinary tiredness, or personality, or just how I am. But in truth, you are wearing a backpack of stones. Each stone is a sentence you once spoke to yourself. I was wrong. I deserve punishment. No one truly loves me. I have to try harder. Those sentences become objects with weight, not metal. But memory, shame, and comparison. Each stone slipped into the pack every time you condemned yourself. And then one day, when you step into the light, by something incredibly small that no one sees and no one applauds, that backpack falls. You stand a little taller. You breathe a little deeper. You are surprised that the familiar posture has suddenly disappeared. You may not even know when it happens. It might be in the morning, when the sun first rises and you quietly say, I do not need to punish myself today. It might be in the kitchen, when you let a harsh thought pass and choose to smile instead. It might be in prayer, when you stop trying to explain and simply breathe and know I am near. Those tiny moments make up the soft sound of release, not when you are trying your hardest, but when you surrender, not when you clench your fists, but when you open your hands. When the backpack falls, you will feel strange. You will not know what it is like to walk without hunched shoulders. You will rediscover your true height. You may stand in a room doing nothing, and tears will begin to flow, not tears of sorrow, but of relief, so light that you cannot fathom how you survived under that weight for so long, so light that every breath feels like a gift. You are grateful not because something spectacular happened, but because something simple has changed. Your back is no longer bent. Your eyes are no longer fixed on the ground. Your heart is no longer beating itself with a stick. I have watched you carrying that backpack for a long time. There were days you shuffled forward under a load I never put on you. You thought it was a cross you had to bear, but I never gave it to you. I carried the weight of sin. You were never invited to carry stones. I see you bowing under it, and my heart aches. I do not push you, saying, stand up. Why are you so weak? I draw near and say, give it to me, not as a demand, but as an invitation. You do not hand it over right away, because you believe you must keep it to prove something. You think carrying weight is humility. But true humility is laying the burden down and receiving grace. When you step across the threshold, the backpack falls, not because you are strong, but because the light loosens the straps, not because you carefully untie every knot, but because I touch them. You do not need to sit and catalog every stone, recall every mistake, every sentence of self-reproach. You only need to walk one step into the space of peace, and whatever does not belong to peace will fall behind. You do not have to understand the mechanics. You only need to know the result: shoulders light, back straight, heart open. You may ask, does that mean I will never bend down again? I answer, you may bend, but not for burdens. You will bend to tie your shoes, to pick up fallen flowers, to embrace another person. No more bending to carry stones. You will be surprised to find you have energy to love, to sleep deeply, to laugh softly, not because life has suddenly become easy, but because you are no longer carrying what I never asked you to carry. That soft thud will be quiet, but the change will be clear. People around you may not understand, but they will notice you are different. You will no longer tell the old story, I am a burden. You will tell a new story through your very presence. I am loved. Each day you walk, another stone drops. Every morning you stand in the light, another strap loosens. Every breath in grace, another layer of weight is gone. One day you will walk across a room and realize, I am not carrying anything at all, and you will be grateful to the point of speechlessness. You do not need to remember every mistake that added to the burden. You only need to remember the feeling when it felt light, free, at peace. That is the mark of blessing, not trumpets, not snow falling outside, but lightness in your bones, lightness in your heart, lightness in your gestures, and you will know I am here. I have done what you could not do. The weight has fallen from your shoulders, and you walk as one who has been rescued. When the burden has fallen from your shoulders, suddenly there is room for what I have long prepared for you, though you never believed you could carry it. No longer bent over to keep the stones of self-condemnation in place. Your hands are empty, and when your hands are empty, they are ready to receive. You do not step across the threshold just to be lighter. You step to live in a new calling, not a heavy duty, not the labor of the weary, but the mission of the free. You are not called to live in the old cell, but to move into spacious places where my breath moves through you. My child, you carry my atmosphere wherever you go, not by pressure, not by noise, not by proving anything. Like wind moving across a field, carrying fragrance without being instructed. Like warmth from a fire spreading through a room without anyone seeing each strand of heat. You do not need to transmit me, you simply live in me. And my breath goes with you. When you enter a room, the air changes, not because you do anything, but because you no longer carry darkness upon your back. Others cannot explain it, but they feel lighter near you, calmer, wider. It does not come from a pleasant personality, but from the Spirit, not from effort, but from presence. You once thought mission meant burden. You once believed serving me meant demand, sacrifice, exhaustion, but that was when you were still carrying stones. Now mission is breath. You carry life, not theory. You carry peace, not slogans. You carry light, not the strain of trying to keep a torch aflame in the wind. When you step through the threshold, the first thing people notice is not your words, but the atmosphere around you. They do not know why. but they breathe deeper near you. They condemn themselves less. They see hope that they too can stand. You do not preach this, you live it. You do not need to become loud. Wind is not noisy, yet everyone knows when it passes. My atmosphere is the same. It slips under doors. It moves through hallways. It brushes the shoulder of the sorrowful. You sit beside someone and say very little, yet they feel peace. Because where you come, I come. Not because you are perfect, but because you have put the backpack down. Not because you are impressive, but because you no longer hide. You do not spread faith by strain, but by living. I do not call you to carry pressure, I call you to carry breath. Remember, spiritual atmosphere is not imagination. It is as real as wind on your face, as real as the morning inhale. I breathed life into Adam's nostrils, and he became a living soul. Today I breathe into you whenever you walk in the light. You no longer breathe in shame, but breathe in grace. You no longer breathe out self-judgment, but breathe out kindness. Your breath becomes a place where I dwell. You walk, and breath spreads. No display needed, no polishing, only truth. True to me, true to yourself, true to others. There are places you will go where people are suffocating. They wear smiling masks, but their hearts are cramped. They talk loudly, but their souls are lonely. When you arrive, it is not a great piece of advice that sets them free, but atmosphere. You will not even know all that you are doing, but I do. You carry a holy quiet, not the silence of fear, but the silence of strength. Like wind carrying the scent of the forest to the porch, no one sees the wind. Yet they know it has come because the fragrance has changed. Your mission is not to become noticeable. Your mission is not to hide the light already placed in you. You do not carry messages to overwhelm others. You carry atmosphere to make them live again. You are one who pours water into dry souls through peaceful presence. Not because you are the source, but because you are connected to the source. You are not the well, the Lord is the well. You are the channel. Only when the channel is open does water flow. And now that the backpack has fallen, the channel is clear. What I want you to remember is this: stepping through does not lead to empty seats. Stepping through leads to a table where you sit, eat, drink, laugh, and then rise to carry the fragrance of the feast into the world. Not heavy duty, but delight. Not obligation, but joy. You live in mission not because you must, but because you want to. You love what I love. You remember what I remember. You go where others forget, and you rekindle sight. Therefore, my child, crossing the threshold means entering a season of life. You do not merely live for yourself, you live to spread. My breath goes out from you like wind carrying scent. It does not need force. It does not need haste. Only truth. Only light. You are the one who brings my atmosphere wherever you go. And that is the most beautiful mission, not straining, not forcing, but living from the breath I have given you. When self-condemnation has fallen from your shoulders, something strange begins in your heart, though you do not see it at once. The soil within you, once barren because it was constantly churned by harsh words against yourself, begins to soften. No more stones of shame. No more thorns of self-judgment. No more bitter roots from the question, why am I like this, under my light? That soil warms, and in that moment, you become good soil. Not perfect soil, but ready soil. not soil that has never known stones, but soil that knows how to release them. Blessing does not come to ruin you. Blessing comes to grow within you. But only good soil can hold a season. My child, there are seasons when I did not let blessing come, not because I lacked blessing, but because the soil was not ready. Blessing too soon breaks both the soil and the seed. But when you cease blaming yourself, the ground is no longer trampled by fearful footsteps. When you stop speaking harshly to your own soul, the earth no longer cracks under the scorching sun of self-judgment. When you learn to sit in grace, gentle rain begins to soak in. Seeds, long waiting, find place. I do not sow seed of blessing for it to lie upon rock. I wait for soil to soften, so that when I let the seed fall, it slips deep, where no human eye can see. The first change is always hidden. People will think nothing is happening, but you and I know beneath the surface. Movement. Roots searching. Roots do not boast. Roots never seek attention. Roots grow in shade. Depth begins not on the surface, but in quiet. This is why when you stop condemning yourself, you no longer waste energy pulling up the wrong weeds. You spend strength on roots. Remember the parable: some seed falls on the path, some on stone, some among thorns, some on good soil. Good soil bears fruit many times over. My child, when self-condemnation rules the soul, you become like hardened ground. Any seed I sow bounces and rolls away, not because the seed is weak, but because the soil is rigid. But when you step through the threshold of forgiveness, the soil softens. When you stop striking yourself for what I have already forgiven, the earth draws in the water of grace. The ground begins to breathe. My breath enters your soil, and your soil is no longer dead. Blessing can come now without ruining you. Hear this: well, blessing does not destroy you, but if the soil within is not healed, blessing will reveal cracks. That is why I heal the soil before I pour blessing. I do not spare seed. I do not spare rain. I tend the soil. When you no longer condemn yourself, you no longer pull up tender plants before they have time to grow, thinking, this cannot be for me. You give seed time. You give roots time. You become patient with yourself because I am patient with you. You asked, how will I know when the soil is good? You will see three things. First, you are no longer in a hurry. Hurry always comes from fear, but peace comes from trust. Second, you begin to give thanks for small things. Gratitude is the rain that soaks the soil. Third, you stop seeing yourself through your failures and begin seeing yourself through the light. When these three appear, the soil within you is ready. I can sow any seed there: peace, joy, opportunity, healthy relationship, wisdom, calling. And the strange thing is this: the seed grows, and you do not know how. You simply wake up and see the sprout reaching upward. Do not fear that the season of blessing will ruin you. You have been prepared. Your soil has been plowed by tears, softened by loneliness, enriched by the quiet I gave you through long nights. None of it was wasted. I remember every seed, every drop, every sigh. No pain was useless. No waiting was wasted. When you no longer blame yourself, you are like good soil, ready, steady, able to hold moisture, able to bear fruit in its season. And blessing will not be something you must clutch to keep. It will grow. It will spread. It will ripen. And it will be harvested in its time. Blessing does not fall like a crashing waterfall that frightens you. Blessing comes like light slipping through the curtain when you are still drowsy. No drums, no fireworks, no cheering, only a morning opening. You do not see any rope pulling the sun up, it simply rises. No one pushes dawn, it just arrives. In the same way, my blessing does not come because of your effort or your shouting. It comes because I have appointed the hour. And when the hour comes, the light floods in. You do not run after it, you stand and see the day change. You once thought blessing must arrive like a mighty storm to prove something. But my child, people only see the storm. I see the dawn. My blessing does not erode the soil, it warms it. My blessing does not sweep you away, it sets you on your feet. My blessing does not demand that you strain, it invites you to breathe. Remember, the morning sun does not shove the field, yet every grain opens. By presence, not by pressure. You do not have to create the sun, you only have to open your eyes. There are mornings when you do not know when night will end. You think you will be in darkness for a long time, but then a thin line of light, like a thread of stitching, cuts across the horizon, and it is enough to announce the day has begun. Blessing is like that. It begins with something small you barely notice, a lighter thought, a gentler word, a moment when you forgive yourself, a time when you do not repeat the old accusation. These small things are like that thin line of light, but they declare that the sun is rising. And then, without a sound, the sky is bright. You cannot pull the sun up by effort. You cannot force the hour of blessing to arrive faster by worry. Like a watchman waiting for the morning, you only need to stand and wait, believing that dawn has never once failed. The sun has never skipped a single morning, and my blessing has never missed its appointment with those who stand in the light of forgiveness. When your heart stops blaming itself, you are not only lighter, you become eastward. You turn your face toward where the day begins, and even when night still lingers, you know morning is coming. My blessing is not noisy. It does not need attention. It is not a burst of emotion. It is a change of climate. Not one explosive second, but the whole sky changing color. You cannot name the exact moment the sun rises. You only recognize that you are no longer in the night. In the same way, a day will come when you look back and marvel. When did this change? You do not know. You simply lived, and the light spread. I want you to walk into blessing not with anxiety, but with peace. For blessing is not heavy. Blessing is light, and light does not press down, it lifts. You need not do anything to make light pour through the curtain. You only need not draw the fabric too tight. When you no longer hide from yourself, when you no longer hide from me, light finds its way in. It slips through the small seams of hope. It touches your face. It enters the room. It warms the cold floor. No one hears the sun. Yet you know it has come because light is present. That is how blessing arrives. Not to make others marvel at you, but so you may live in peace. Simply stay in the room with me, and you will see the light. When you have stepped through, when the floor beneath you is no longer the old border, you will recognize something you never named before. You are not here because you guessed the road correctly, but because you were led correctly. You did not choose the path or the timing by yourself. You simply listened and walked. Every decision you once thought was risky, every turn you believed was reckless, was not the gamble of someone stumbling in the dark. It was the step of one following the light, not because you are wiser than others, but because the light was before you. You do not see the whole landscape, but I see the whole landscape. You do not need a map when you walk beside the one who knows the way. You will look back and exhale, not from exhaustion, but from relief. You once strained, believing you needed perfect choices to avoid ruining your future. You once feared that mistakes would bring regrets beyond repair. But now, when you stand in the new doorway, you know blessing came not because you were flawless, but because I am faithful. You did not enter because you guessed correctly, but because you did not run from my voice. You simply followed, one step at a time, sometimes trembling, sometimes unsure, but always moving toward the gentle voice within you. You will see the paradox clearly. The steps you thought were small led to places that were great. The turns you thought were lost were detours around deep ravines. The moments you thought held no progress were the times when roots were growing down. My guidance does not look like prediction. It looks like breathing. Not rigid, not strained, not forced. I lead in breath. You follow in step. And when the door opens, you are not rushed to claim credit. You simply see grace. Light does not demand recognition. Light invites you to live within it. My child, you feared that if you did not analyze enough, if you did not think hard, you would miss something. But my voice is not in the storm of worry. My voice is in the gentle breeze. I do not lead you by threat. I lead you by peace. You follow because you feel within you a quiet that cannot be explained. That is the sign. You do not need to know everything. You only need to recognize peace. And now, when you look back over the path, you see my thread woven through every decision, every turn, every season. Do not think you must hold the map. You cannot. You only need to hold my hand. When you stand in the new doorway, you know that the road ahead does not depend on your ability to predict, but on my ability to guide. What I love in you is not strategic skill, but a listening heart. When you listen and walk, I take care of the rest. You cannot see the whole road, but you can see one step, and one step is enough. I lead. You follow. No strain, no force. Not the project of the mind, but the fellowship of the heart. And when you stand within the new doorway, you will see every old fear grow small. Not because you have become stronger, but because the beauty before you has become greater. When blessing is present, darkness shrinks by itself. You no longer need certainty about everything, because my presence has become your certainty. You did not guess correctly. You were led correctly. You did not come here by yourself. You were brought here. And because of that, your heart is filled with gratitude, not for your own worth, but for the grace that led you. When you stand within the new doorway, the first thing you notice is not majesty or cheering voices, but a deep and quiet stillness. Not emptiness, but solid ground where everything can begin to grow. Not a frightening void, but room to breathe. You never knew that freedom had its own sound, the sound of a heart no longer beating in fear. In that quiet, you begin to walk not with the haste of someone running away, but with the calm steps of someone coming home. The floor beneath your feet does not demand proof. There is no judge, no scorecard, no comparison, only you and me, and a door that is open and no one closes. What I want you to know is this crossing is not the destination. It is the beginning of a way of living. One crossing does not transform you into someone else, but stepping every day will change you. You no longer stumble over the stones of self-blame, so you go farther. You no longer stop every few steps to examine whether you are worthy. When that question falls out of your heart, you release strength to live. energy is no longer consumed by judgment, but flows into creation, into love, into building. You begin to notice the small things you once overlooked: the light on the table, the birds outside the window, the warmth of the cup in your hands. These are not mere details. They are evidence that life has returned. When the heart is no longer imprisoned, everything becomes spacious. Child, I did not call you into the new doorway so that you would anxiously guard it. This door did not open because of achievement, so it will not close because of lack of achievement. This door opened because I set the hour. You do not need to watch the hinges. You only need to live inside. Every step you take is not to keep permission, but to explore the permission already given. You will discover that within this doorway, you no longer ask, "Am I allowed to be here?" You will ask, "What can I do with this grace?" The change lies in the question. The first question is fear. The second is creativity. The new doorway is not a museum of belief, but a workshop of hope, where things that never existed begin to take shape. As you walk, you do not lose yourself. You find yourself, no longer a slave to old memories. You become a keeper of the present. Every breath is a gift. Every person you meet is an opportunity to carry my breath to them. Faces that once seemed pale now shine when you are present, not because you try to make them happy, but because you do not bring darkness into the room. When self-blame falls away, you are no longer a bearer of fear's scent. You become a carrier of peace's fragrance. You do not need many words. You do not need explanations. You only need presence. There will be days when you do not see great blessing, but you will see small moments you once missed. You will notice that you no longer respond with tension, but with quiet. You will notice that praise does not make you proud, and criticism does not make you shrink. You will see maturity appear without noise, like roots growing downward in silence. No one can film it. Yet one day when the wind comes, everyone will know the roots are deep. Daily steps, though simple, create that kind of hidden strength. There will be moments when you ask, "How do I know I am walking the right way?" I will answer, not by excitement, but by peace. You do not need ecstasy to know I am here. Quiet peace is the sign of guidance. When you walk, not every door must open. Some doors close because I shield you from what is not yet the time. Some paths curve because I am keeping you from a cliff. Some delays exist because I am deepening your roots. If you see only with your eyes, you will think you are halted, but if you see with your heart, you will know you are growing. Constant walking does not require exertion beyond strength. It requires faithfulness. Today's step does not need to match yesterday's. Some days you go far. Some days you stand still. Some days you only breathe. In all of it, I am here. I do not grade your speed. I care about your direction. Are you walking toward me? If yes, then you are walking well. At times you will be tired. At times you will not know what to do. In those moments, do not rush away. Stay in the light. Dawn is not always blazing. Some mornings are gray. But even when clouds hide the sun is still present. So it is with you even when you cannot feel me. I am near. The new doorway is not just a space. It is a heartbeat. It is the way you face yourself. You no longer judge yourself before coming to me. You come directly. No detours. No hiding. No spiritual cosmetics. When you know you are loved in weakness, you do not need to pretend to be strong. That creates a different kind of beauty, not beauty that shows off, but beauty that is true. Others will see it and long for it. They will not ask to learn theories. They will ask to find breath. You do not need to preach much. You only need to share what you live. There will be seasons when I send you wider, not to display yourself, but to spread. When light is strong, darkness withdraws. You do not need to fight darkness. You only need to stand in the light. Darkness cannot defeat light. It only wins when light hides. So do not hide. You do not need to bury yourself in self-judgment. You do not need to hide behind shame. You have stepped through. The door does not close behind you. The door is open, and wind moves through, and you move with the wind. As you go deeper into the new space, you will begin to hear the things I whisper that you could not hear before. Not because I speak more softly, but because there is no longer the noise of self-accusation. When the noise is quiet, my voice rings. I do not shout. I whisper. You will realize that guidance is not loud instruction, but invitation. You are not dragged. You are drawn by goodness, by beauty, by peace. These do not force, they invite. And you go, not because you must, but because you want to. You will discover this small steps of faithfulness create great doors of blessing. You do not need to know the distant future. You only need to walk today. And today is enough. I do not ask you to carry a lifetime. I only ask you to carry today. Today's burden is light because I walk with you. The future is not heavy because I am already there. The past does not bind because I have paid. The present is not threatening because I am here. One day, you will look back and you will not know how all this came to be. But you will know who led you. And your heart will overflow with gratitude not for one miracle, but for a lifetime of small miracles, day after day. These things will weave together into a great story. You will tell it not to boast, but to invite. You will say, I stepped, and I was led. I was not perfect, but grace was more perfect than I. And those who hear will find courage, not by argument, by breath, my child. Now that all the noise has settled, now that the voice of self-accusation no longer holds a place in your heart, I want you to do only one thing: stand in the light and breathe. Do not rush to build anything. Do not try to prove anything. Do not pick up the old stones you have already set down. They do not belong to you anymore. They have fallen from your hands, and the earth has taken back their dust. You do not need to look down to see if they remain. Look up. The soft light rests upon your forehead, gentle as mist, yet real. You are not imagining it. You are living. There is a holy stillness when the soul stops fighting itself. The former battles no longer call. The old accusations have lost their strength. The door is open, and you are on the inside. Not a perfect garden, but good soil. Not a field without stones, but a field with rain. I do not wait for you to reach some ideal form. I wait for you to open your hands, and you have opened them. That is the first miracle. Now I want you to walk slowly, each day. Only one step. You do not need to run to keep your blessing. My blessing does not escape you. You do not need to hurry to prove your worth. Worthiness does not come from you. It comes from me. You only need to remain within what I have already finished. Not to impress, but to live. I want you to live a life without a bent back, without held breath, without bowing from shame. I want you to walk with a straight back and bright eyes. Not proud, but clear you belong to me. Listen, you are not left behind in the past. The past has done its part, and it no longer demands anything from you. You have learned the lesson. You have wept. You have stood. You have walked. And now, you owe the past nothing except gratitude. You do not have to pay a debt for old mistakes. I paid upon the cross. You do not need to prove. You only need to receive. Your place is not in the hallway of shame. Your place is in the bright room. And the bright room does not require you to decorate your soul. It only requires you to be present. Every breath you take is evidence that I am near. Not near as an idea, but near as presence. I am not far upon a mountaintop. I am beside you when you wash dishes, when you drive, when you stand in a crowd and think you are lost. You do not abandon me when you are busy. I do not abandon you when you are sad. I am the atmosphere around you. You inhale, and you know I am here. You exhale, and you know fear is no longer master. In the days to come, there will be moments when you want to pick up the old stones. Not because they are beautiful, but because they are familiar. When that happens, stop. Remember me. Let your hands stay empty. The light will find its way. Peace will return. You do not have to fight darkness with your own strength. You only need not to block the light. The door is open. You do not need to hold it. You only need to walk through each day. My child, I do not call you to become a legend. I call you to become real. Real with me. Real with yourself. Real with those you meet. You do not have to be perfect to reveal me. You only have to reveal what I have done. When you speak, I will breathe through your words. When you are silent, I will be with your silence. You are not abandoned along the road. At every stage there is a table, water, fire, bread. The space is not empty. There is no desert forever. There are chilly seasons and rainy days. But there is always dawn. Let your heart rest in this. You are not judged by what has passed, but led by what is coming. I write the future with light, not with old sin. You have the right to open your eyes, lift your head, and step. No need to wait for perfect feelings. No need to wait until your heart stops trembling. Stepping while trembling is still stepping. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is stepping in the midst of fear. I go before. You follow. My presence is your guarantee. And now, you only need one response. Not a loud vow. Not a heavy promise. Only a quiet word in your heart. I trust God. That is enough. When you say it, angels know where to stand. Light knows the way. The door is not closed. The road widens. You do not know the whole future, but you know the one who leads. And knowing the one who leads is enough for you to walk. Breathe in deeply. Let your shoulders rest. Let your eyes shine. The rest, I will take care of. Thank you for listening to the message today. Click subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may receive the living word. Build strong faith and walk in the boundless love of God. Amen.